stop annual planning. Now, if you're like most business owners, you likely spend a good chunk of December making big, bold plans for the coming year.
This year is going to be legendary.
Only to look up sometime in February and realize that all those well-laid plans are nothing more than a steaming, hot pile of garbage.
We are losing a lot of business, Sam.
I want you to know that there is a better way, and it starts by acknowledging that the annual planning process that most of us were taught is completely and utterly broken.
Wait, what?
In this video, I'm gonna break down our scalable planning process. If you don't know who I am, my name is Ryan Deiss, and my partners and I manage 17 companies across our $200 million holding group. So we know a thing or two about strategic planning at scale. I'll even drop a link where you can access the same planning tools that we use. Before we dive into our strategic planning process, let's first address the problems with annual planning and why I believe it fails entrepreneurs. Number one, annual planning is simply too long to be predictable. 12 months is a long time. I mean, it's kind of easy to think what you're gonna be doing next week and maybe next month, but to think out a quarter, to think out multiple quarters, 12 months in advance, it kind of gets a little bit hazy. Now, problem number two, annual planning is too short to be meaningful. So while annual planning is too long to be predictable, it's also too short to really accomplish something that is truly inspiring. So on one hand, it's too long. On the other hand, it is too short. Problem number three, annual planning is just too hopeful. If you think about the time when most of us do our annual planning, it is at the end of the year. This is when all of us are hearing, hey, new year, new you. This is the time when we are at peak optimism.
I can do it all.
And this is the time when we all make those unrealistic, hyper-optimistic New Year's resolutions. The way that I think about this, setting your company goals in December is a bit like going grocery shopping on an empty stomach. You're gonna wind up taking on more than you can chew. So now that you know why you shouldn't do annual planning, let's break down what you should do instead, starting with step one, which is to plan in 3-year cycles. Now, you have probably heard before or read before that all businesses should have a 10-year BHAG. That stands for a big, hairy, audacious goal. I've just found it to be not that helpful. Thinking out 10 years, come on. But we found that 3-year cycles really is the sweet spot. You know, it's not so long that it feels ridiculous, but it's long enough to feel like you can do something really, really meaningful. So what we wanna do when we're setting those 3-year targets is we wanna set a 3-year revenue goal plus a 3-year profitability goal. There are typically 2 goals that we're going to recommend and that we're gonna start with. The first goal is simply double in 3. We want the business to double over the course of 3 years. That is the minimum acceptable growth standard that we have for the businesses that are in our portfolio group. And the reason that that is the minimum standard is to double in 3, all you really need to do is have compounded 24% growth year over year over year, and you will double. I'm not saying that 24% growth is, super duper easy, but it also isn't that hard. It's something that if you're really trying and if you have a great business, it's something that you should be able to achieve. Now, the gold standard goal that we've set is top line to bottom line. And top line to bottom line, again, not very clever names, they're pretty descriptive, is when we simply take what the current top line revenue of a company is, and we make that the bottom line 3-year target. So if a company is currently doing $2 million in revenue, we're gonna ask the question, what would need to be true for this business to be doing $2 million in profit in 3 years? It is now time to move on to step 2, which is to break the 3-year target into 12 quarterly chunks. This is easy enough to do if you want to kind of map it out and spreadsheet it out. The tool that we happen to use is one that we built. You can see it right here, called the 12Q Planning Canvas. This tool just makes it really simple. If you go over here, so this company right here is doing about $2 million in sales and about $100,000 in profit, so about a 5% profit margin. And they're planning to go, as I said before, top line to bottom line. So 2 million in sales to 2 million in profit. To do that, they're both going to grow the top line and they're gonna dramatically grow their profit margin. What this tool is gonna do is it's gonna show the growth that needs to occur quarter over quarter. So what this just did is, from both a sales and a profitability perspective, it broke the goal up into 12 quarterly chunks. So you can see here, where they would need to be to achieve this goal from a run rate perspective right here. Now, what this also allows you to do is it acknowledges that growth is never a straight line. And you can project out how you actually think it's gonna go quarter over quarter. So maybe for you, you know that you do really well in the fourth quarter, and maybe you don't do as well in the second quarter. So you could go in there and just acknowledge that in the projections. And then you can go back over time and put in what the actuals are and see, are you above the line or are you below the line, and what actions do you need to take to make sure that you are on track for that 3-year target. And speaking of the actions that you need to take, that's exactly what we're gonna talk about in step 3. Step 3 is going to execute in 90-day sprints. The way we do this is we hold a 1-day quarterly sprint planning meeting. This is where you and your leadership team will meet to identify your 3-3-3. And you're gonna see what I mean by 3-3-3 in just a second. So first, what you're gonna choose are 3 key metrics to prioritize for the quarter. So these 3 metrics are the metrics that you believe, if optimized, will get your company closer to your 3-year target. Now, just as a side note, you shouldn't have to pull these metrics from thin air. Ideally, you already have a CEO dashboard, aka a company scorecard. If you don't have one of those, I created another video on that topic. You should definitely go and watch that one as soon as you finish with this video. Second, we're gonna choose 3 broad strategic pillars for the quarter that are gonna align to each of those 3 key metrics. So for example, let's say that you have determined that you need to increase your net promoter score from 64 to 89. Now we want to identify, we wanna create a pillar, a strategic pillar to align everybody to that metric. So in this case, we might choose a pillar that is elevate the client experience, because we believe that if we elevate the client experience, the net promoter score will increase. Finally, step 3 is we wanna select 3 to 5 projects or key initiatives under each strategic pillar that, if executed, will get those key metrics that you selected back on track. So if you do the math, if we've got 3 metrics and each one of those 3 metrics is gonna have its own pillar, so 3 pillars, and under each pillar, you're gonna have 3 projects or key initiatives, then in a given quarter, a company, a team should have no more than about 9, 10, 12 projects or key initiatives that they are executing. The reason that this works is because they are all aligned to the same metrics, and it's that compounding of effort that makes all this work. It's that compounding of effort that produces the results. So to sum this thing up, this scalable planning process works because number 1, it's data-driven. Number 2, it aligns everyone in the company to the same strategic goals. And number 3, it's agile because you don't have to wait 12 months to try again. You get to go every 90 days. It's also fractal, meaning in larger organizations, when your team size gets above 50 or 100, you can repeat this process at the team level. The key is you want everyone in the company making data-driven decisions that are all aligned to the metrics that matter. Now, if you like this process and you want help setting and hitting your company's growth targets, that's exactly what we do at The Scalable Company. And if you'd like to learn more about what it's like to work with us, be sure to check out the link in the description.